Hello students, welcome to day one of the SAT 10-day out review. Today you're going to work with CASPAR, which is an acronym which helps you to build the skills that you need, critical and analytical thinking skills, so that you're able to attack the reading portion of the SAT appropriately. As you learn from your notes today, you only have 65 minutes to read 5 passages and answer questions for the reading portion. And what that means is you have to move quickly through with focus and intention. CASPAR is one way of doing that. Now, of course, on the test, you will not have time to make annotations and build a chart and do a quick write, but the more you practice CASPAR, the more the thinking that comes along with it is ingrained in you, or you internalize the process so that you won't actually have to write anything. That way you'll just think about the C, the A, the S, the P, the second A, and the R without even directing yourself. It'll happen naturally. Before we get started, by looking at the rationale and the directions, I'll review what the letters stand for. The C represents characterization, which questions are focused on when you're reading literary nonfiction or prose from the SAT. They will ask you about the people, about the point of view, etc. Anything that relates to the people or characterization. The A stands for adjectives. People will be described and situations will be described, and those words will help you to know what the author is trying to communicate to you, sometimes explicitly, but more times than not, implicitly. The S stands for the setting, which is very important for framing your thinking about the people and situations. Clearly, society's rules in the 1800s are very different than they are today, so please pay attention to the blurb which relates to the setting, the when and the where. Many times that information is italicized. Next is the P, and the P stands for the problems or the situations that are addressed within the prose or the literary nonfiction selection, such as problems with people, society, self, etc. The second A stands for actions, or the events, again, situations that take place within the actual selection. Finally, we have the R, and that stands for the resolution. Sometimes the issue will be resolved, but again, more often than not, on a short passage, there might just be an outcome. There may be no real resolution, but just how things end up at the end of the passage. Take a look at the rationale. It tells you that it's important to know the look-fors as you read literary nonfiction and prose. It's important to think of the information in advance, especially since you know that most of the questions will relate to the elements of CASPAR. And then that way you can focus on the important ideas and analyze effectively and, most importantly, correctly. The directions tell you to read the excerpt and complete the chart and the quick write. And again, just as a reminder, on the day of the test, you won't create a chart and do annotations and do a quick write. Instead, you'll be thinking about the elements without recording them, because again, you don't want to run out of time. In fact, you won't even read the whole selection, but we'll come to that tomorrow. Okay, so the CASPAR elements again are helpful because they give you the common look-fors. The piece that the example is based on is Once More to the Lake by E.B. White. Your teacher may have given you a copy to read, and if not, it's not necessary. I'm going to move down to the completed example so you'll know how your CASPAR chart and your quick write should look when you're done with your analysis. When we look at the C for characterization, the people that are discussed in the excerpt are E.B. White, who is sentimental and thoughtful, White's father, and White's son. Whenever you have information about one of the people from the excerpt, it's important to think about that, because usually there will be a question related to that person and how he's characterized in the selection. Because the selection is an excerpt from a personal essay, then we know that the point of view is first person. First person questions usually require us as the audience to think about the person's integrity, whether he or she is reliable, whether he or she is honest, and etc. So just call attention to that information as you read the specific line numbers for questions. The next section is the A, the adjectives or the descriptions. Those adjectives or descriptions give us hints about how we're supposed to think or feel about the setting, the characters, and the situations. Next is the setting. The selection begins in the early 1900s and progresses through the mid-1900s as E.B. White becomes a father himself. Where does the story take place? It takes place on a lake in Maine, the vacation site. Problems. Sometimes there is more than one problem. The conflict in this situation relates to White's struggle to differentiate between the past and the present. His memories are taking over, and he can't let go of the past, even in the current situation with his son. In terms of the second A for actions or events and situations, the event is White taking his son to the lake in Maine, just like his father did when he was a boy. The situation is that the memories flood White's present, so he is confused and disoriented. The outcome is White is overcome so much that he becomes dizzy and he is unable to differentiate between himself and his father and his son and himself. So he's playing two different roles and it's overwhelming. Based on the information that we were able to glean from the selection, it's now time to look at a quick write which puts everything together. We're able to think about the summary of the main points from the beginning, middle, and end, and we're also able to think about the author's purpose for conveying certain details and the events and information about the characters. So let's take a look at the quick write below. We were able to learn from reading the excerpt of the memoir about White's character. He is thoughtful and nostalgic, and he remembers a time in the past with his father. He reflects on things that may have changed. He is somewhat apprehensive because he really wanted to be like it was when he was a boy, but we know that all things change and eventually come to an end. So at the end of the selection, we see White being overcome by his memories. They are just incessant, they won't stop, and he feels strange, dizzy, and out of sorts. He's kind of alienated by the experience with his son because he sees himself as his father and also as his son. So again, we're thinking about the author's purpose for writing the selection. We should always think about that. And it is to explore the common occurrence that many of us have experienced, the deja vu of having been somewhere or been with someone before, and also to emphasize or show us how important memories and experiences are. We can't let go of the past because somehow they're always intertwined with our present. He wanted to reflect on that discomfort too. It wasn't just that it was a positive experience with his son, it was somewhat uncomfortable. And so he wants us to know that essentially the past is the past, and no matter how important it is, if you try to recapture it, it probably will be a little uncomfortable. How do we know that he was uncomfortable with the situation, or that we were supposed to feel a little tension with him trying to reconnect with the past? So look at some of the words that he used: desolate, strange, tentatively, dizzy. Those are all words that we associate with negative feelings or negative situations. In paragraph 5, he composed several lists to keep us engaged and moving along with him as he's thinking and moving along with the experience. So it does engage us in his feeling of being disoriented. And then finally, the author used allusions to religion. He called the area surrounding the lake a cathedral because he wanted to show us just how reverent his feelings were toward this location and toward this lake in Maine. So again, we're thinking about the author's purpose for the types of details that he includes, the types of descriptions, etc. Now you are all set. You're ready to do your CASPAR analysis. And again, remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. So you'll practice today and continue practicing with CASPAR in the future. And eventually you'll be thinking about texts before you even begin reading them. And as you read, you'll automatically and very quickly pick up on those look-fors that we need for appropriate critical and analytical thinking. You are all set and ready to go. Good luck.